everyone. Thanks for joining us for another edition of HorseCenter, brought to you by Horse Racing Nation and Derby Wars. As always, I'm joined today by my Breeders' Cup winning partner, Matt Schiffman. Matt, you had a lot of winners on Breeders' Cup. How are you today?
I'm good. It's a little gray and nasty in here in New Jersey, and I sure wish I cast more tickets at the Breeders' Cup, but I'm glad to be here.
We all do. Of course, I'm Brian Zipsey, and as always, back in Louisville, we have the best producer money can buy in Ember Marr.
Hey, guys.
Hi, Ember. Hey, Matt, let's do something a little bit different today. Let's talk about the Breeders' Cup in the top 10 moments. We're gonna run down, we're gonna review the Breeders' Cup as you knew we would, but instead of reviewing it in a traditional way, we're gonna do it by listing down the top 10 moments of the 2014 Breeders' Cup at Santa Anita. What do you say?
That sounds like a cool idea to me.
Let's do it. All right, number 13. Now, we saw a lot of things happen for the first time this year at the Breeders' Cup. I don't know if you knew this, but this was the first time ever that 13 different jockeys came home as Breeders' Cup winners.
I knew that there were 13 different jockeys, but I didn't realize that this was the first time that ever happened. So that makes it even more interesting. And amongst those 13 different jockeys, there were 3 first-time winners.
Who were the 3, Matt?
The 3 first-time winners were Irad Ortiz. Now, I should punt these over to you because you specialize in the French here on HorseCenter, but I'll try and do the French. And then,
go for it.
And then you can correct me. We had Florent Geroux, who is the Arlington Park leading rider, and Pasquier came over from France to get his first Breeders' Cup victory also.
Yes, I believe he was on Caracantay, and of course, Florent rode Work All Week. It's kind of nice to share the pie a little bit. 13 winners, no one dominated. I guess Johnny V had the best overall record, throwing in his seconds and thirds. He, of course, won one of the bigger ones with the Breeders' Cup Turf, Main Sequence, who we're going to talk about soon. I'd like to throw in a little bit of a plug, though, for one jockey who didn't win one of these 13 races. I thought Jamie Spencer, he, of course, is retiring soon. I thought he ran a very good race aboard Toast of New York. He was on a horse who's not a true speed horse. He had to chase, and he got out of the gate fast. He came over a little bit to do it, but he ran a good race chasing Bayern all the way, and in the end, he only lost by a nose. So not one of the 13 winners, but nice ride by Jamie Spencer.
Yeah, I have a feeling we might talk a little bit more about that race.
The Classic, you think?
Yeah, I don't know. We'll see if it gets into the top 10.
You better believe it. What's number 9 for us, Matt?
Number 9 is that we had 2 winners from unusual places. We had a New York bred and an Illinois bred take a Breeders' Cup race. Day at the Spa, New York bred, and Work All Week, Illinois bred. So I thought it was kind of great that we had a couple of the non-blue blood, so to speak, type horses get in the winner's circle.
What's so unusual about that? I love New York breds and Illinois breds.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we had, as usual, of course, Kentucky was the dominant force in the breeding of Breeders' Cup winners this Breeders' Cup. Kentucky actually had 9 of the 13 winners. But, yeah, it wasn't California, it wasn't Florida, it wasn't Europe. The other 4, as you mentioned, New York, Day at the Spa, deserving winner. Illinois with Work All Week, a very deserving winner. We also had a Japanese bred, Caracantay, and we had one bred in Canada, and that, of course, is the top-notch sprinting filly, Judy the Beauty, and Adina Springs bred mare. So Canada got one.
And I think that Work All Week and Day at the Spa have legitimate shots at getting a year-end Eclipse Award also. So we'll see how that plays out.
Yeah, Judy the Beauty too. In fact, in a recent article this week, Matt, I proposed the thought that maybe Day at the Spa wins too. If you think that turf horses can win the older awards, as Wise Dan has done the last 2 years, Day at the Spa might be flying up the older female award as well. Of course, I think she will be the turf mare of the year.
Yeah, because it seems like the traditional dirt-oriented older horses, for the most part, all kind of tailed off towards the end of the season. So we'll have to see how the voters handle that. Close Hatch has had a fantastic early run. Is that enough? She tailed off at the end. So I think, as you wrote, Brian, that's probably the most wide open of the Eclipse Awards.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. As good as Close Hatches was in winning her four starts of the year, first four starts of the year, 3 Grade 1s, the fact that she really ran poorly in the Spinster and, of course, the Breeders' Cup Distaff, people are going to wonder. So that, yeah, interesting award. We're going to jump down to number 8, and I think it's time we start talking about the two-legged competitors at the Breeders' Cup. Matt, they're important too, right?
Absolutely, and the just as much as the horses, the trainers and the jocks are stars of our sport.
The horses, I got to be honest, the horses are my favorites, but yeah, you're right. We couldn't do it without all the wonderful efforts, participations, and all the great work that the trainers, the jockeys, the owners, the grooms, everyone does for these horses. And you know what? The Breeders' Cup opened Friday afternoon. The very first race was the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Turf. And we had one trainer run 1-2 in there. It was a Hootenanny. Hootenanny was the winner, the well-traveled Hootenanny. But luck of the kitten, horse who ran at Arlington this year, ran second. Wesley Ward ran 1-2, and that just started a big Breeders' Cup for Mr. Ward.
It sure did. It got Wesley Ward his first Breeders' Cup win after many, many, many tries. So he got off the duck, so to speak, in style this year.
You say duck, I say schneid, but whatever he did, he sure got off it. On Saturday, he came back with Judy the Beauty. I thought she beat a very good field, and she had a fight off Better Lucky. But he also had a second on Friday with Sunset Glow in the Juvenile Turf Fillies. And then in the sprint, Bobby's Kitten came flying up for Chad Brown, but just behind him was 2 Wesley Ward trained horses. No Nay Never was second. Undrafted was a fast finishing third. I'm going to add it all up, Matt. I think Wesley Ward had 6 starts at this year's Breeders' Cup, 2 wins, 3 seconds, and 1 third. And for that, Wesley Ward earned number 8 on our top moments of the Breeders' Cup list.
That's a heck of a performance. And Judy the Beauty was the only favorite on Saturday in the Breeders' Cup races that won. Number 7, continuing with the human side of things, is Chad Brown. New York-based trainer Chad Brown. What a day he had, huh? 3 Breeders' Cup wins. He's only the 3rd trainer in history to have 3 wins in the Breeders' Cup. Of course, Richard Mandela had 4 wins in that amazing year. So that was quite a performance for Chad Brown. Almost $2.6 million in earnings from those 3 victories.
Yeah, those 3 victories all came on the turf, Matt. Chad Brown, I once knew him as a young Saratoga trainer. He quickly became a king of the turf. And while he's had some better performances or better horses to run on the dirt lately, Chad Brown showed his turf prowess at this year's Breeders' Cup. What was it? Day at the Spa, wonderful New York bred we already talked about, yep. Bobby's Kitten.
And I think the one that I like best out of the 3, Lady Eli.
Lady Eli, I tell you what, the rail opened up so wide for her, I couldn't believe it, but I don't think anything was going to stop her on Friday in the Juvenile Fillies turf.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing her run next year.
She's still undefeated in 3 starts and very impressive in each start. She had some trouble in her first 2. She's been geared down. She's been winning easy. Hey, Matt, Day at the Spa. Day at the Spa. Remind me of Day at the Spa's sire, if you would.
I think not only Day at the Spa, but Work All Week. Both of those horses that we mentioned earlier were sired by City Zip.
City Zip. Always something I liked about City Zip. I don't know why.
City Zip is stands at Lane's End in Kentucky for $40,000, and this Breeders' Cup sure is a feather in the cap of that stallion, who's known for prowess on the turf, his offspring, and a lot of New York bred sired by City Zip also.
He's a cool sire in that you see him win sprints on dirt, you see him win distance races on turf, and everything in between. He's your stud of the week, huh?
That's our stud of the week, City Zip.
Awesome. Should we get back to our top 10 list, Matt? You ready?
Let's keep on our top 10.
Top 10. Okay. Well, I think it's time. We talked about 2 trainers in a row. How about we talk about the horses? In fact, forget the Breeders' Cup for a second. How about we start talking about next year's, the 2015 Kentucky Derby? We're less than 6 months away, Matt. Never too early.
That. It's time to start when we got something to look forward to.
That's right. 6 months or less. And if you ask me right now, who's the most likely winner of the Kentucky Derby, I'd say, what are you, crazy? It's pretty tough to pick a winner 6 months out. But if I had to pick a horse, Texas Red. Texas Red was, what a turn of foot he showed in the Juvenile this year.
Yeah, he absolutely showed the winning running style for the Kentucky Derby. Nice, steady, strong move from off the pace. Went by horses easily. And if I'm not mistaken, he's got the Triple Crown kind of bloodlines too, doesn't he?
Yeah, he actually has he's from a Chilean mare, but she has a lot of distance influence on her side of the pedigree. And of course, his sire was a Fleet Alex, who came about as close as anyone in the last 36 years to win the Triple Crown. Kind of an unlucky winner, loser of the Kentucky Derby, but then he really turned it on in the Preakness and the Belmont. So there's no reason to think that Texas Red isn't a horse that will get better with distance and will progress next year on the road to the Triple Crown.
Yeah, I don't know if I agree with that completely for the Kentucky Derby. I'm not sure if we should throw the Eclipse Award to Texas Red so quickly. I mean, I think there's going to be supporters of American Pharaoh, and I think we need to keep in mind that at this point last year, Shared Belief, who won last year's Eclipse Award for 2-year-old males, had only just broken his maiden. So I don't know. Could another Shared Belief appear at the end of this racing season?
Yeah, it's still too early to call some of these Eclipse Awards yet. And with only one stakes win, Texas Red is by no means a cinch. American Pharaoh might, in fact, still be ahead of him. Unfortunately, American Pharaoh couldn't run in the Breeders' Cup this year. You know, a couple interesting things I want to throw out there, at least I thought they were interesting, Matt, about Texas Red. He was purchased as a yearling for $17,000 at Keeneland. $17,000, you could have had the $2 million Breeders' Cup Juvenile winner.
Wow.
He began his career at Arlington Park, where he just missed in a maiden race. He was flying on the poly track at Arlington, second by a neck that day in a 5-furlong sprint. Probably not his cup of tea as he moves forward. And the DeSormo brothers, I think we need to mention Keith and Kent DeSormo. Kent's a Hall of Fame rider. Keith is his brother, the trainer of this horse. Keith was the one that picked this horse out of the Keeneland yearling sale. Found him for $17,000. I think he has 4 partners in on this horse, so it's a nice story. The DeSormos didn't work together for years and years. They've been reunited in 2014, and getting back together didn't happen too soon. A few months later, here they are winning a Breeders' Cup race together, and my guess is you see Kent riding Texas Red all the way to the Churchill Downs starting gate next spring.
Yeah, I was down in Winner's Circle to watch the Juvenile, and there were an awful lot of Texas Red caps pouring down from the stands after their horse won, and they were proud to proclaim that they were just a bunch of regular Chicago working kind of folks who got themselves quite a terrific horse.
Yeah, well, five partners at $17,000. I don't know if they're all equal partners, but that's a little over 3,000 per person to buy this horse. So good for them. Why don't we jump down to number five, Matt?
Number five. I'm so proud of number five. Main Sequence winning the turf on Saturday. I know you guys heard me on at least two or three horse centers in the past talking about Main Sequence, and I was sticking with Main Sequence. And boy, he made me proud the way that horse ran, because our show before, we talked about what a tough field the turf had turned into. There were some awfully fine Europeans that came over, and Main Sequence ran his race again and wasn't going to let anybody beat him. Congratulations to Graham Motion. 4 Grade 1 wins this year out of 4 Grade 1 starts this year. Main Sequence, terrific horse.
Yeah, Matt. In fact, I think this horse probably doesn't get good call. By the way, you were one of Main Sequence's biggest supporters all year. I don't think this horse still gets the credit he really deserves. Not all Grade 1s are created equal, but he's winning tough 11, 12 furlong races, and something inside of me thinks that he's a competitor, and maybe he could win some of these races by a little bit more than he does, but he really likes the competition late in the race, and you can just see him reaching for the wire in the last 50 yards of all of these races to win them. Huge performances again. Not everybody ran their best race probably in the Breeders' Cup Turf, but certainly Flint sure did, and he was good enough to be second in the Arc in his most recent start. It looked like he might even have Main Sequence 50 yards from the wire, 100 yards from the wire, and Main Sequence denied him, like really good horses do.
You talked about margins. As it turned out, I think it was a half-length official margin, was the biggest margin that Main Sequence has won by this year. I know in the last NTRA poll, I voted Main Sequence as my number 1 horse.
As did I. Number 1, Main Sequence. He'd be my choice for horse of the year.
Brian, what's your, we didn't get a chance to hear your ZATT Star of the Week yet.
ZATT Star of the Week? Well, it's the horse that we both put number 1 in our NTRA poll. It's the horse that I think both of us are kind of thinking might be the most deserving of everybody for Horse of the Year in 2014. Main Sequence. Out of all the Breeders' Cup performances, Main Sequence is ZATT'S Star of the Week. There you have it, Matt.
Congratulations, Main Sequence and Graham Motion.
You like that choice?
I love that choice.
I guess we should mention the owners, Flaxman Holdings, because they won both turf races to end the card there. They won the Breeders' Cup Mile with Karakantai and Main Sequence. So it was a big couple races there for Flaxman Holdings. Number 4, Matt, I think it's another horse who might not get as much credit as he deserves. He's the 2-time Breeders' Cup Dirt Mile winner.
3/4 in 109-1, and he's into the stretch looking for another Breeders' Cup win. Goldencents to the 8th pole. Tapiture is full out, but he's coming on. Less than a furlong to go. It's Goldencents and Tapiture. Goldencents just keeps on going. Goldencents will do it again in the Dirt Mile. Tapiture could not get by him. He had every chance. Hands on Fire was 3rd, and the Chilean horse Bronzo gets up for 4th in a final time of 1 minute 35.16 seconds.
See, it's fun to see horses win off like Texas Red into the Juvenile, but like we just talked about with Main Sequence in the turf, sometimes even better performances are not won by big daylight. A good example of this was the Dirt Mile, 2nd in a row for Goldencents. What'd you think of his performance, Matt?
I was wowed by his performance in that race, because broke maybe a tad flat-footed, and that caused him to get, because Vickers in Trouble took off out of the gate, that caused him to need to get rushed up, and right out of the gate, he was in a hand ride from there, and he and Vickers went at it into the back stretch, and they were going hard. And I thought Trevor Denman did a great job calling this race. He described them as like a couple of quarter horses going at it. They opened up a big margin, and Vickers in Trouble eventually backed out, but that's when Tapiture K started coming. Goldencents didn't get a break, didn't get a breather at any point in that race. And that's a pretty amazing performance.
Yeah, I'm reminded of what my father used to tell me as a kid. He would say the toughest distance for a horse to run is not 12 furlongs or it's not 6 furlongs. It's a flat mile. And I think you know, that is true often. It's not always true, but in Goldencents' case, it was certainly true, Matt, for just the reason you mentioned. He never had a breather. He had to run as hard as he could every step of the way. You know, not all fast fractions are created equally. He was on the lead in 22 flat, 44 and change, and that's enough to take the wear on a lot of horses. But the fact that he broke behind Vickers, he certainly broke behind Vickers in Trouble, who went right to the lead. He had to go after him. He was used. I thought he was used in the first furlong pretty hard to get to the lead. Bayern wanted the lead, you could tell, and for him to set down those fractions with all that pressure early. And then Tapiture really was in great position to win the race. He was the horse that was able to take advantage of the beneficiary of those fast, contested early fractions, and he swooped up on Goldencents. And really, Tapiture should have won the race, save one thing, and that's just how good and how much heart Goldencents has. What a good miler he is. I don't think we appreciate milers enough in America. He's not a sprinter. He's not a classic distance horse. Goldencents is a hell of a horse, Matt. Great way to go out. His career is now over. He's going to Spendthrift Farm to become a sire. He retired with 7 wins in 7 seconds in 18 starts. As consistent as you could be. He didn't get it done going distances of 10 furlongs, but he was a big winner at 9 furlongs or less. In his last 13 races, Goldencents, 11 of them were grade 1s, with the other 2 being in grade 2. He earned his retirement in a big way, Matt, I thought. And if Main Sequence hadn't been my star of the week, it would have been Goldencents.
Yeah, a deserving number 4 in a terrific Breeders' Cup weekend. Number 3 is the American performance in the Breeders' Cup. The American-based horses dominated the Breeders' Cup. And I tell you what, if you could have gotten a betting line saying that you thought the Europeans were only going to win 1 race, you probably would have gotten some awfully darn good odds. So it was quite a performance by the American horses, and probably a pretty disappointing performance by the European horses. The Americans took the juvenile turf races, both of them, and the only race that the Europeans were able to take was the mile.
Yeah, Caracantay, the Japanese bred, did it for France. He's a French trained colt. I'm with you, Matt. I was one of those ones who thought the Euros would win 3 or 4 races here. As usual, I thought they were strong again. Yeah, disappointment. Now, of course, things could have been a little bit different had the Classic gone another way with the English horse Toasted New York. But he's been in America for a while, or at least I think his last 3 races were in America, and he'll be pointed for big American races next year as well. But he could have made it a good Euro day with that win in the Classic. But yeah, it was a wonderful performance by the Americans. I was happy to see it. Nothing against the Europeans, but it's always nice to root for the home team.
Yep, absolutely. And with the cause anchored by Main Sequence, great job for the USA.
USA, USA. There you go. All right, number two is from Distaff Day. That's Friday of the Breeders' Cup. There's only 4 Breeders' Cup races on Friday. We talked already about Goldencents and his gritty win to get that second dirt mile. But, of course, the day belongs to the females. And in the Breeders' Cup Distaff this year, I think it belonged to the females ×2, Matt. You had Untapable, the new queen of American racing. This is the first time she raced against older horses. She had a great year, but she failed in her 1 attempt outside of 3-year-old fillies before when she was beaten in the Haskell. but this time she stepped up against the older mares, and it was just an untappable kind of race. She got outside, she stalked like she usually does, she made her move, and she pounced.
Yeah, Untapable was absolutely terrific, as she has been throughout the year. And I don't know, it's looking like she should be a unanimous Breeders' Cup, unanimous Eclipse Award winner for the 3-year-old fillies. I can't imagine anybody finding a way to vote for anybody else. And then, of course, we've got to talk about the jockey, Rosie Napravnik. Been the symbol of women jockeys, probably the best women jockey in the history of the game in terms of Breeders' Cup wins and winning meetings at the prestige tracks, and just an amazing fan favorite, Rosie, who made her announcement in the winner's circle. I think she got swept up in the emotion of the victory and said that she wasn't going to make the announcement then, but she did, that she has now retired to start a family.
First, I just want to thank Steve and Ron Winchell for having me on the filly to begin with, and also letting me get back on her after I was injured. As far as how much it means to me, I can't really explain, but I'm going to have to explain it to my mom first. I wanted to tell you in person that my retirement starts on Sunday, and Joe and I are starting a family. I told you I was going to give you good TV.
Congratulations on the win. And
it was a bombshell. Yeah, she had her mom there. No one saw it coming. She's going to start a family. I always thought that Julie Crone was the best female rider. I didn't think that was going to change anytime soon. But you gotta appreciate everything Rosie's done in a pretty short amount of time. What a way to go out. She won the distaff. She retired. She announced her retirement after the distaff. Untapable and Rosie, maybe this is her most successful horse ever. And for her to win a Breeders' Cup race, what a better way to announce her leaving the game. She'll be missed. She might be back. I wouldn't be surprised at all to see her back. But yeah, Julie Crone and Rosie Napravnik, that's my list of the greatest female riders ever.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, I also have in the back of my mind that maybe, you know, when she has the kids and the kids get a little older, maybe she'll get a little itch and come back to the track.
That's right.
Best wishes, Rosie.
Best wishes to Rosie. Enjoy motherhood. Number one, Matt, I'm going to let you take over. I'm a little. I think we covered everything. I can't think of what number one could possibly be from the Breeders' Cup this year.
Yeah, I don't know. Oh yeah, I guess we have to talk a little bit about the Breeders' Cup Classic.
Bayern goes in. Here comes Majestic Harbor. They're all in line. We are ready for the start. They're off in the Breeders' Cup Classic, and Bayern broke to the inside. May have impeded shared belief there. Bayern is going to go out to the early lead. Moreno is stuck in behind horses. Toast of New York is there on the outside, and California side. California Chrome is third. Shared belief laboring back there in fifth. 1 furlong to run. Bayern, Toast of New York, California Chrome on the outside. The three of them come to the wire. Bayern, Toast of New York, California Chrome. Here's the finish. Bayern holds on over Toast of New York, then California Chrome.
Here it is. Bayern goes wire to wire and wins the Breeders' Cup Classic. I know I was a little worried about this happening. I was a little worried that, and I think I said to you at some point, Brian, I don't know if we were on the air or we were just hanging out. I know I said to you, yeah, but Brian, what's going to happen if Moreno doesn't get after Bayern? Can he do it again? Can he get out front and just keep going? Well, that's what happened again, but it didn't happen for the reason that I thought it was going to happen. I thought it might happen because Moreno's had a tough campaign and it was just going to be too much. Not for the reason that it happened.
No, Matt, it wasn't for the reason that you mentioned. Moreno is every bit as fast as Bayern. The first quarter mile, the first half mile, the first three-quarters of a mile. Moreno would have pressured Bayern had he not had trouble. The trouble cost Moreno the chance to do what he wanted to do, to be on the lead or right there with Bayern. So tough luck for Moreno. The start of the race also cost another horse, the Breeders' Cup undefeated champion, the Breeders' Cup favorite, Shared Belief. It cost him the opportunity. Probably cost a few others. VE Day was crunched badly. He's more of a rallying type, so you don't hear about him, but he was really crunched in at the start too. A lot of the horses inside the 7-hole were hindered. Their chances were not what they should have been because one of the horses in the field, I'm forgetting who it was now, came over egregiously, Matt. It wasn't a awkward beginning where you bump a horse or two out of the gate. It was a left turn out of the gate the first several strides of the race. The people I was around at the Breeders' Cup, you included, couldn't believe that the horse was going to stay up. You know, even though it was the start of the race, it absolutely affected everything that happened. You know, some people say, well, the start of the race, things happen. A foul's a foul in my mind. And in fact, I would go as far as to say this particular start of the race foul committed by Bayern against several horses in the race was even worse than if he had bumped somebody at the 8th pole, because in this instance, he affected a lot of horses. He took several horses out of their race. For that reason, he won by a nose. If he had won by 5 lengths, I might be talking about a different thing right now. But he won by a nose, and he was the one that affected all those other horses early on. Bayern should have come down, and I'm disappointed with the California stewards. I'm disappointed with the stewards at Santa Anita for not taking him down in the Breeders' Cup Classic this year.
Yeah, and you know, now that we're almost a week out of the Breeders' Cup, you know, I think we've all had a lot of time to think about what happened, and I finally boiled it down to, and you said it in your comment, that a foul is a foul. And that's the way it used to be in racing more with the stewards. And we've gotten away from that foul as a foul. And we've added in this whole subjective part about whether they think the horse would have won the race or did they really affect the outcome of the race. I really have a lot of trouble with that subjective part. I think we need to get back to, was there a foul? And if there was a foul, then the horse comes down. I don't know how we can make those other kinds of calls. So in this particular case, it would have meant, did Bayern foul? I don't think anybody will argue that fact. He did foul. And for that reason, I think that he should have come down. But ultimately, the times have changed. And we all
I agree with you. I agree with you that I think we need a different way of doing things. We need to take away the subjectivity. But even subjectively, the two things that you just mentioned, would Bayern have won the race if not for the foul? He won by a nose and he had no early pressure. So my answer is no. Bayern would have not won the race. The other thing you mentioned is, did he affect horses adversely with his foul? How can you not say he did that? He did just that. Shared Belief, VE Day, certainly Moreno. So even subjectively, even if the stewards say, well, would he have won the race? Did he bother horses? Subjectively speaking, I don't know how they can say no. So something's wrong with this call. I think the only reason that they can stand by is, well, at the start of the race, we don't like to disqualify horses. What needed to be done at the start of the race for Bayern to come down? Did Shared Belief or Mike Smith need to fall down?
The only thing that didn't happen was a horse going down, a jockey coming off, That's the only thing that didn't happen at the start of that race.
Dangerous precedent set in my mind. So I'm with you. I like the idea of a foul is a foul. If he commits the foul, there's no subjectivity. He's taken down. Toast to New York, the winner. You know, he bothered some horses when he came over. I don't think it was half of what as bad as what Bayern did. You know, it's a shame that the Classic ended this way. A race fan after the race said to me, "What do I tell people now that ask me that horse racing isn't quite fair? The fix isn't there?" And I don't know how to answer him. You know, it was a decision by the stewards, but it doesn't sit well with me. I know it doesn't sit well with a lot of people, and I think it's a black eye, frankly, for racing.
Yeah, and if you were there, you could tell that the decision didn't sit well with almost everybody at the racetrack, because I don't think I've ever heard such a loud reaction to a steward's decision at a racetrack like when that decision was announced.
Yeah, and it takes away from really good performances. Bayern ran a big race. Toast of New York ran a big race. Certainly California Chrome, coming from the 13th hole to be lapped on, those two ran a big race. I really think the 3-year-olds this year, as evidenced by their 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 finish in the Breeders' Cup Classic, are a very good crop. Maybe the best older horses in the country weren't available to give them their best, but it's a nice crop. Moving forward, Bayern, California Chrome, Shared Belief, Toast in New York should all be knocking heads again next year. In America, in Dubai, I think we'll see at least 2 of the 4 in Dubai. So we have a lot to look forward to from a good crop coming back next year. Hopefully we'll see Tonalist as well, maybe a few other 3-year-olds. So that's the good part of the Breeders' Cup Classic this year.
Absolutely.
Thank you, everyone, for joining us for another edition of HorseCenter. As always, it's been our pleasure to bring you the best in horse racing. Please do like us on Facebook, Horse Racing Nation, Derby Wars. You can follow us on Twitter at HR_Nation and at Derby Wars. Thank you, Matt. Always a pleasure.
Ryan.
Thank you, Ember.
Thanks, guys.
Well done. Say goodnight, Ember.
Good night, Ember.
Good night, Ember.